absolutely. That's something that I'm definitely interested in learning more about. I had heard that you were on this world tour. Have you experienced the energy in Giza, and could you compare that to the energy in the Bosnian pyramids?
Interesting that you said that. We were in Egypt in 2009, and I must say, that the energy in Egypt was very bad, very negative. When you go to the Giza Plateau, you're bombarded with salespeople, with people trying to sell you things. There is camel dung all over the place. So they kind of set it up so that you cannot pay attention to the energy there. You're constantly worrying about who's assaulting you or where you're stepping, or what's going on, immediately in your energy sphere, so that you can't pay attention to the pyramids. And I think it's purposely designed that way so that you don't access the energy. You're not allowed to touch the pyramids or climb on them or anything that you used to do years ago. And the energy is very, very negative in Egypt. And of course, the poverty at the time was overwhelming. And I'd like to add that the recent change in government and uprising in Egypt in no way reflects the actual people of Egypt. There's 80 million people in that country, and I would say, how many were actually protesting in the streets? You're only talking about less than 1% of the population, if that. The whole thing was a setup across North Africa and the Middle East to change the governments in order to accommodate what's coming with the New World Order, etc. And, I noticed that a couple of years ago in Egypt, it was really very heavy energy. But the people really were more interested in just getting through their day. They didn't care who was in office or what the price of anything was. They just wanted to get through their day. There was a tremendous difference in energy there. When in Mexico, for example, the energy was a little stronger, a little more powerful, more benevolent, especially in the Yucatan. The energy in Mexico City and that area was phenomenal. And even in South America, back in 2009, I was given permission by the Bolivian government to go to the site of Tiwanaku on the Bolivian-Peruvian border on Lake Titicaca to access any tunnels or systems there in order to access or find out information. I was actually given a letter and permission to go anywhere without being stopped with this group of archaeologists, and we did go. They took me to a room in Bolivia, in this near the site of Tiwanaku, and we were not allowed to take pictures, but they showed me this glass enclosed place, and in there were dozens and dozens of elongated skulls that were obviously not from human beings. And you could see the eye sockets and the nose bones. Everything was very different than a normal human being, and the head was this huge oblong shape, like you would see in an alien being, for example. But I was not allowed to take pictures. I was only allowed to see this. And we also went to places where I did see energy that indicated interdimensional technology, where they did go to alternate realities. They did have stargates there. Under Lake Titicaca, you could see energy moving. You could see lights under the water, even in daylight. They found undersea or under lake cities and cities underneath the bottom of the lake. So I think this is an area that needs to be to more access. They wanted me to find a tunnel that was originally found in 1982. And when they explored this tunnel and they went in, they found a chamber with 3 tables that contained cyclops beings in suspended animation that were 9 feet tall. And around these beings in the room was a computer system estimated to be 15,000 years old. And when they reported that at the time to the Bolivian government, which was a military dictatorship at the time, they were ordered to bulldoze the entrance and to not reveal it to anyone. And so when I went there in March of 2009, my mission, one of my what I was told to do, was to find this entrance. And I did find the entrance. And from what I understand, it's being excavated now to find, again, that chamber with the Cyclops and the computer. So hopefully I will be invited back to explore that further when they open it up.
Wow.
That sounds very interesting. The elongated skulls. Excuse me. I've noticed that there is a very large trend in a connection between pyramids and pharaohs, and even with the Vatican. The Pope wears a very long hat to resemble an elongated skull, and and you mentioned the number of 13,000 years. If it's 13,000 years old, that would be around the same time as the Giza pyramids were actually built, and the elongated skulls with the pharaohs and the bloodline traditions that they have there. Perhaps there was a similar culture on the other side of the ocean that were also, experimenting with genetics and things of that nature.
That's true, and all of these sites do prove, at least to me and to many others, that there was at one time a global society, just like we have now, and that met with some calamity that broke it up, and the survivors then were not in communication with each other and had their own civilizations. But there was a time in the world, at least once before, where there was global communication. And there were pyramids all over the world, and there was electromagnetic energies, and they floated stones, and they did healing techniques, which would be considered miracles today. So there was a global civilization that was destroyed. So when we think that we are invincible, and we think that we're in a society that could never be destroyed, we have to remember what's happened at least once before on this planet, where a global society came to an end and wasn't discovered till tens of thousands of years later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And one question, I'm not sure if you have the answer to this, or maybe someone has speculated along the way, but the elongated head aspect. What is there like a race in particular that's trying to emulate?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of things. There are several. Well, there's many races that have heads like that. But going back to what he said earlier about the Pope. My opinion is that the hat the Pope wears is really emulating a reptilian head, and in ancient Egypt and even the Inca, very often they would take a newborn and fasten boards to the head, the soft skull, so that it would grow into a cone shape that would emulate what they considered to be their gods or masters that came from the stars. So yeah, there were many civilizations, not all, but many, that had species with elongated heads like that.
So it does seem to primarily be like a reptilian thing?
It's reptilian, but there are also humanoid species that do have heads like that.
Okay. That's interesting. So I do know you have various contacts, shall we say, and extrasolarly, shall we say.
Well, I'm waiting for them to pick me up. I want to get out of here.
It seems to be a common sentiment these days.
Aren't we all?
It's really, yeah.
There's a question from the chat room from Joseph asking, was there a capstone in Bolivia for the regards to the pyramids?
Yeah, there were many different pyramids in the South America, not just Bolivia, but in Peru, and believe it or not, there are even some in Argentina and parts of Chile and Ecuador. There's a lot more than science or history lets us know. Yes, there are capstones. There were capstones. There are different kinds of pyramids. For example, the pyramids that we see in Egypt, kind of like the top of an octahedron, the four-sided, that did have a gold capstone. Those pyramids that you see in Egypt and the ones like it, what you see above is also below. So in effect, it's not just a pyramid, it's an octahedron. And those types of structures are used for interdimensional travel. It's kind of like a delta T antenna built into the ground. Then we have the step pyramids, like you would see in Mexico and in Bosnia and in South America. And the step pyramids were more used for healing, for sending energy physically, and they were also used for ritual and ceremony. So depending on the culture and the location on the planet, there are actually various kinds of pyramids that were used for different functions.
Interesting.
And, yeah, the step pyramids did not have capstones, but the octahedron pyramids did have capstones.
Was there a commonality in relation to the stones that were used in the different pyramids, or are they all different types of stones too?
Well, most of them were limestone. Some of them, like the ones in Bosnia, used cement, artificial cement, even 30,000 years ago. And there's even a pyramid in western China, which we were not allowed to go to. When I was in Tibet, they refused to allow me to go to that pyramid. That is perhaps up until the discovery of the Bosnia pyramids, that was considered the largest one. That's completely white. It has the original surfacing and the original capstone on it. Again, all these pyramids are connected, not all of them, but many of them, through underground tunnel systems that crisscross the world. And apparently these ancient civilizations knew how to traverse these tunnels with devices that we no longer have.
Does that play into the aquifer association with a lot of the pyramids too?
Yes. Yes. The ones in Egypt, for example, there is a part of the Nile that is subterranean that goes underneath the pyramids of Giza. And that water was used in some of the narrow tunnels of the pyramid. They used to draw it up, and water is an amplifier of electromagnetic energy. So by drawing up the water in and around the pyramid and then electromagnetizing the energy, it makes the whole thing go interdimensional.
Wow. Well, we're almost at break time here. Is there actually, Led, is there anything on your mind you wanted to ask real quick or anything before we took our break?
Well, I do have a question, but I could probably wait until after the break regarding the water and a science fiction show about stargates. But that can wait till after the break because there's a lot of information to be said about that. So.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, all right. I guess let's go ahead and just go to our break right now then. And those in the audience now, if you guys have any questions, by all means, keep posting them in the chat room or feel free to call in. Our number is 661-621-7530. So formulate those questions, and we'll be right back after this break.
Dry once more.